So here I am in Illustrator and I have our golden ratio that we drew out. And I'm going to go ahead and create my circle version of the golden ratio so we can go ahead and get started with another version of a golden ratio logo. So I'm just going to take a stroke, let me make it a different color, like a really bright color. I'm just drawing my circles just like I did in the previous video, but I'm just going to do it a little bit slower so you guys can understand how this works. So each square that I created when creating the golden ratio boxes, I'm just going to make a circle for each one. And this will keep all of the circles within the golden ratio confines. They're all relative to the size in the golden ratio. I'm going to keep going till I get to the last box. You can create an infinite amount of circles, but I'm just going to kind of end it right. Let me go ahead and delete that. Go ahead and delete this or move it out to the side. And I'm just going to center align all these guys right here, just going across this panel and doing a center alignment. There we go. So now we have the basic circles to create our golden ratio. So what I wanted to do for this one, the last time I created a bird object, this time I want to do it with a letter. So I'm going to take the first letter of my last name just as an example, M, and let's play around with some font types to find a nice bold M we could take, outline the M so we can edit the M and make it our own, and we're going to apply it to the golden ratio using the circles we just created. So I located a really nice bold font that we can outline, and it's called Primetime Regular. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to create outlines, and we're going to change this M significantly so it's no longer recognizable as this font. It'll kind of become our own little mark. So here's our circles here. I'm just going to group these together. Go ahead and drag these across. And we're going to size our M, and I'm going to put this in the background so I can kind of see the red lines overlay on top. And I'm going to reduce the stroke on these so I can see more detail. And just do the transparency back a little bit. I don't want it to be so overpowering I can't see the underlying M. Okay, so I'm going to center align these, and I'm going to apply the M to this most outer circle. So I'm going to go ahead and size it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting the corner here, right here on the circle, and I'm going to try to make it so that this lines up with this circle, so these are aligned, and up top, these points of the stem of the font is aligned. So I'm just aligning these up. Just about as close as you can. So there, we applied it to the largest circle, and now we can kind of take our other circles. I'm just going to go ahead and move these, ungroup this, move these center circles out. Just going to move. Do not change the size of the circles. So unless you change all of them at the same time, because then they'll go out of the ratio and they'll become a different, they'll no longer be that 0.61 ratio to each other. So if I want to change the size of all this, I need to do them all at the same time, and they'll all be in the golden ratio together. I can't take this one circle and make it smaller and then move it around, because then I lose the ratio. Let me go ahead and shift these. I'm going to keep this outer circle since we were already starting to use that as our guide. So I'm going to take what I think is the shape, and I'm going to start to apply it to some of these rounder areas. I'm going to make a really curvy M. So one thing I want to do is maybe make this a curve. So let me take a look and kind of study this a little bit to see what kind of curves, and I'm going to drag the circle into certain areas that I think would look really neat. I'm using the golden ratio. So I did decide that I needed a smaller circle, one more smaller than I had originally. So I went back and I did the circles. I did the largest box all the way around, and I decided to do this very small one at the very end because I think I needed that for some of the smaller inside curves in the M. So I just redid it. Now I have a couple of smaller sizes to work with. So now that I have my circles, let's begin to copy and paste a few over here that I think would be a right size. So let's start with kind of a smaller one. So I'm going to take the smaller one, and see if we can't put it here. Let me go ahead and zoom in and show you. I want to make a nice round curve here according to the golden ratio. So I'm going to place that circle right here. And I want to also have a nice curve here. So let me see if I can't take a little bit of a bigger curve, put it right there. Of course, we want the opposite side to match. Put a curve here. We can make that smaller and let the curves be more dramatic. It just depends on what we're looking for. So I want this to kind of be more of a dramatic curve. So I'm going to put that right here. Copy and paste. And I'm going to adjust these in a little bit. I'm just kind of seeing what circles or sizes I can work with here. And I think I'm going to make those smaller. So let me get the next size down and do those little small curves. And let's see if I can't take this tiniest one and bring it down here and maybe close the M right here and close that end to be black and have a nice curve down there. That might look pretty neat. And right here, so let's see, maybe this one. Let's do one size up. Just copying, pasting, and putting it right there. So we'll end up shaving a little bit of that bottom off to make that a nice golden ratio curve. And same thing with here. We could cut this M along this edge and cut that out, but I think that's too sharp of a curve. So we can grab a little bit of a smaller circle and soften that a little bit, maybe cutting it here. Let's take this kind of medium size and let's see if this is a good curve. So we can do the curve any way we'd like. Maybe right there. Maybe get a little bit of a bigger one. So let's see what this one looks like. Ah, I like that curve right there. That's beautiful. And I love how it comes up to this apex right here. So you see how that's a nice curve. So let's copy and paste. And let's put it on the other side and try to match it up as best as we can. And let's make sure these are aligned. So I'm just going to select both of these circles and either do a top alignment or a bottom alignment and make sure they align up here. Great. And if we can let the circles touch in as many places as possible, that'd be even better. So let's maybe shift this. You don't want to make it bigger or smaller, so we got to make it work within its confines. So that might be pretty good. So I like that cut. Great. Okay, so let's find another match. This is actually the one I've already done ahead of time. It looks pretty close to what I did. It looks like I have a little bit of a bigger one maybe right here. So let's copy and paste this one. See if I can't get a more gradual curve there. So I spent about 5 minutes just taking some time and kind of pairing up the circles, and this is kind of the final arrangement of the circles that I like. And so now we're going to start to work on kind of cutting those corners according to these circles. So one thing I want to do is I want to make sure a lot of these are aligned properly. So if this is going to be the upper left and this is going to be the upper right, I want to make sure those are aligned horizontally. So I'm just going to go up and do a vertical align top to make sure those are aligned. Let's actually make sure all 4 of these circles are aligned and adjust them if need be. We can make sure these two circles are aligned, so this one right here and this one right here. Let's do a center alignment. Let's make sure these 2 circles are aligned toward the top. Let's do a top alignment and make sure that everything kind of matches up nicely. And so you notice how these two, this larger circle and this kind of medium-sized circle, they kind of overlap right here at the corner. That's another great thing to do with your circles, to line them up. So there's a little bit of a science to it, but there's a little bit of a subjectivity where you can kind of align the circles where you think would be some good curves to go with. So let's start at the top and work our way down. Let's kind of just make some small adjustments. And I might make the strokes skinnier. I'm going to highlight everything and deselect the M. And I'm going to make my stroke really skinny because I don't want the stroke to get in the way, the thickness of the stroke to confuse me with any cutting. I'm just going to take these two. I'm just going to shift them over with my left keyboard key, my left arrow, or I might have to manually adjust it so they go along the curves a little better. Same thing with this, just kind of make sure everything's lined up. We can always do it one by one. All right, so let's begin doing our curves. So there's a couple ways we can do this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go along this curve and basically cut this section out. So we can do a couple of things. I can add with my pen tool a point right here on the circle. Whoops, let me get addition. Add an anchor point. I'm going to click right here. Select my M first. Add an additional point here and add an additional point here. When I go back to direct selection tool and click off of it and click on, I'll get my little curvature tool here. So you see the little curve right there? So now I can pull down on it. Pull it down as much as you can. And see the red line? I was able to align right to it. You can always draw it manually if you don't want to use that tool or if you don't have that tool available. Okay, so now that curve's done. So let's adapt this curve right here. So you see it's off just a little bit. All right, there we go. So let's do the same thing here. And this one we might be able just to take the curvature tool, which is right here, kind of shift this one around. There we go. That curvature tool really helps out. You can use the regular pen tool to make adjustments to your anchors, but sometimes if you need that perfect round circular shape, go ahead and grab that curvature tool. So there's our little curve for the top of our M. We're going to do the same thing to the other side.